Hi everybody, Nate Eaton here with EastIdahoNews.com, chatting with Summer Shiflet, who, big news today.
Big news.
Chad Daybell sentenced to death.
Yes.
Your thoughts, your reaction?
My reaction is I didn't think that I had an expectation. I thought I was going to be fine no matter what the verdict was. I appreciate the jury and their work and effort. But when I heard them say those words, it was everything I needed to hear. I just appreciated so much that Tylee and JJ's deaths, that there was going to be a consequence for how horrible they were treated.
Do you think that have you thought if death penalty was an option for Lori, that maybe she would have gotten that too?
Very much so, yeah. I don't know if she would have or not. I know the juror you interviewed said she wouldn't have done that. I don't know. It's hard with the mom. Right. But definitely a possibility.
What have been your thoughts watching the trial over the past 8-9 weeks?
Eye-opening. It's been so interesting to me how contrived Chad has been in his life and how he's isolated so many people for his own gain. Let's
talk about Lori, and is she aware of the verdict? Have you heard?
I don't know if she's aware of the death penalty verdict or even the guilty verdict. I'm not sure if she knows that, but I kind of let her know that Chad was throwing her under the bus, so she was aware of that.
Did she have a response?
Her response is pretty much, you don't understand and you'll see someday. She's very much in her delusion and doesn't accept the reality of what's actually going on. In her mind, I don't think that she even thinks that there were any murders that occurred.
Do you think that Chad is in a delusion, or that Chad truly believes all these religious things?
No, I don't think Chad has one religious belief. I think he is, I don't know if he can help it, if he was born this way, but I think he's completely void of all empathy, regret, of accountability. I think he has manipulated his whole life and learned to fake it, and a lot of manipulators use religion to get their way. So I think that's what happened.
And that's what he did to, I mean, everybody, a lot of people are like, who was leading who? Mm-hmm. Chad, Lori, and the prosecution over the past 8 weeks has tried to prove, and obviously did prove, that Chad was the leader. Lori would go to Chad. Mm-hmm. Melanie would go to Chad. I mean, people would go to Chad for answers.
Yeah,
and you think that he did that?
I think, and this is my opinion, but my opinion is Lori started her delusional disorder, and that's what made her susceptible to Chad's. I think he saw this beautiful woman who had these ideas, and he took them and ran with them and learned how to manipulate her to get his way. But the mastermind of things, I mean, who isolated who? Chad isolated Lori and Alex and Tylee and JJ. Then he got rid of Tylee and JJ. Then he eventually got rid of Alex, and then it's just him and Lori. He was still in contact with his family. He was still in contact with his friends, but Lori had been isolated from everybody that she knew and cared about her. So I'm not saying she's completely faultless. I'm not making excuses for her part or behalf of anything like that. I hold her accountable. She was their mother. It was her job to protect Tylee and JJ. But I see the pattern of a manipulator in that Chad was the one who wanted them gone. And I don't think Lori's delusions weren't ever talking about light and dark or anything like that before Chad came into the picture. So to me, it's Chad's the leader in that.
So we're here at CrimeCon in Nashville, and you just spoke before thousands of people. We talked about this very issue and what the effect it's had on you, and you were asked, a couple of questions from the audience, who obviously has been following every detail in this. What was it like to speak publicly in front of a large crowd right here in Nashville, Tennessee?
Well, everybody here has been actually really kind to me and supportive, and so it felt comfortable talking to them. But it's also nerve-wracking because my last interview was in 2020 and it did not go well, and I did not get a lot of support from
because
that.
You stood up for Lori.
I did.
Lori had been arrested. Mm-hmm. The kids were still missing. You went on national TV and said she's a good mom. She wouldn't do anything to hurt her kids. Right. Your mom did too.
And I knew that they weren't missing to her. She wasn't saying they were missing. She knew exactly where they were the whole time. So for me, it wasn't matter that these kids are missing when she knows where they are. If she didn't know, then I would be like, oh my gosh, but she knew. So she's reassuring me, telling me that they're safe and that she's, you know, what kind of mother I am. And you know, I've always taken care of my kids, and I have seen her do those things. So to me, it was natural to defend her at the time.
Do you think that Lori will ever realize? Well, I guess I should back up. There are people who say she's faking it.
Absolutely.
There are people who say she truly knows and it's a front. You don't believe that?
Nope, not even for a second. It is 100% delusion. She is not the same person. She doesn't respond. She doesn't. You can't crack it. You can't break through. Nobody. Meryl Streep isn't that good of an actress. Like, she's solid in her beliefs. Her reality is as real to her as our reality is to us, and so she's in that delusion, and she does not think that she has any mental problems. She does not want to be in a hospital. She wanted to go to trial. She'd rather be in jail than the hospital for whatever her reasons are. I still don't understand that, but that's what she wanted. She wanted to go to trial. I begged her not to. She did it anyway, and this is the result. She's not faking it.
And she still stands by Chad Daybell.
Yeah, I believe so. She doesn't ever mention his name to me, but she has a certain way of talking around that makes me believe that she's still 100% a supporter of Chad. And if she was not in jail right now, I would still be kind of out of her life, and she would be off with him.
You believe that they'd still be living their life together and
Yep,
isolated from everybody, as you said.
I do. Well, he wouldn't be, she would be.
Right. What about Alex? Let's talk a little bit about Alex. You know, your brother is not here anymore. Was he? Well, first of all, how do you think he died?
So personally, when the police came to my house, they came to my house on December 17th of 2019 to do a welfare check on Tylee and JJ, and I had a conversation with them, and then they came back 2 days later and said, we understand that we don't think you understand what happened to your brother. You didn't sound like you knew what happened, so we wanted to explain to you that he died. And they were there present at the autopsy, and the police officer told me that he was present for the autopsy, that they did not suspect foul play. They believed it was natural causes. Alex had blood clots in his lungs on both sides, and he was a truck driver. It's common with truck drivers to get blood clots. And I don't think that, it's not that I don't think Lori and Chad are capable of murdering Alex at all. It's that I don't think that they would have the skills necessary. I don't think that they're the mastermind genius criminals, you know, to get away with something like that. So I don't think they fooled an Emmy. And the police were very active. They were actively investigating Alex at that time.
The investigation was underway. They had already exhumed Tammy's body.
Exactly.
They knew these names. While we as the public might not have known, they were
on it, and they were watching him. They knew. They were there when he died. They kept his body for several weeks and made sure they did all the testing they wanted to do, kept the samples they wanted before they released the body. And they didn't believe that it was anything but natural causes.
But you hear, and I totally hear that, and one of the detectives at one point said that may be the only coincidence in all of this, Alex's death. But you hear that patriarchal blessing that Chad gave to Alex. You hear what Alex did, I mean, with the guns, and I mean, he was likely the guy.
He was.
So it just makes you wonder, I mean,
sure.
Was there something?
And they had kind of cut him off. So they kind of abandoned him. So I think it hurt his feelings that he was abandoned at that time. From my understanding, I wasn't in contact with him at the time. But yeah, I mean, he was the guy that they turned to. But to me, I look at that and see Chad manipulating him, and Lori too. But Chad would lay his hands on his head and give him a blessing and tell him Jesus Christ was right there and command him to go do these awful things. And Alex thought he was obeying, you know, Jesus basically at that time. So it's awful. And I'm equally as mad at Alex as I am for Alex for what they did to him and what he did to the kids.
And you said in that call to Lori that if Alex was involved, which you were glad he's gone if he was. Do you still feel that way?
Yeah, I mean, I think we would have more answers if he was alive. I think he would have told.
Turned on them.
I think Alex couldn't hold everything in for that long. He would have talked. So I think if he was alive, we'd have more answers. But for myself personally, I'm glad he's gone for that reason.
At what point, Summer, do you remember realizing, because like we said, you went on television, you defended Chad and Lori, even
I
though
didn't defend Chad. I didn't know him.
Okay, you didn't defend Chad. You did defend Lori. Yeah, that's
Yes.
right. You said she's a good mom. At what point did you realize, okay, this isn't good?
Before this all came out, when I was talking to her when she was in prison, and when the kids were missing in December, and then she went to prison in March, it could not compute in my brain that she could have hurt her kids. It just didn't make sense in my mind. I'd seen her as a mother. We had been around each other. I know I could never hurt my kids, so it didn't make sense to me that a mother would do anything. And she'd always been very protective of Tylee and JJ, and I've never even seen her yell at them. Like, she was always very loving. So it didn't make any sense to me that she could have done anything to them. But it also wasn't making sense that they were nowhere. I didn't know where they would be. Who would they be with? It didn't make any sense, but I'm giving her the benefit of the doubt. As a sister that I know and love, I'm giving her every benefit of the doubt that when this is all said and done, it will make sense. She will explain it to me, and I just need to have a little bit more faith in her, or, I felt like I had to give her the benefit of the doubt, which I really tried to do. But the longer it went, from February, March, April, May is when I did the interview, and by then I'm thinking, well, maybe something happened and she just doesn't want to tell us, but I still couldn't wrap my brain around it at all.
And where did you think the kids were?
I had no idea. She never said a word. She wouldn't say. So I didn't know, but she just kept implying that they were safe, or she would say straight out they were safe. And so who am I to question? They're her kids. I'm thinking, where your kids are. And she obviously would have trusted whoever she had left them with, in my mind at the time. So I just couldn't understand it.
So then was it June 9th, 2020 that really
changed everything? That day is still the worst day of my life. And my thinking went from, my sister can't possibly have done this, and Alex couldn't have possibly done this, to she'd lied the whole time to me, to her, to Colby, to her son, to my mom. She was lying the whole time, and we knew it. And we knew that day that we found out death penalty was on the table, we knew it was bad.
So one of the interesting things you said at CrimeCon today is that Lori was asking you to chat every 2 or 3 times a week. Mm-hmm. Talk about that before this.
Yeah, so she was arrested, was it the end of February, beginning of March?
Right, yep.
Somewhere in that time frame. She would request for me to call her, and so I would. I talked to her. I hadn't talked to her from October. I think it was actually September was the last time I talked to her, but it was somewhere September, October-ish, that I had ended texting and calling with her, or she ended it with me rather. And then nothing. It was just crickets until she went to jail. And then she wanted to talk, and so we started talking about 2 times a week. And then when the kids were found on June 9th, crickets until June 24th.
When she sent a message saying, do you want to talk? Can you talk?
She sent me a request for, I think it was an afternoon time, and I panicked, and I called my mom, and I said, I can't talk to her. And she said, you don't have to. And then I got another request a couple hours later for that evening. And I just kept thinking, like, what if she wants to tell me what happened? She wants to finally explain things. Maybe she needs help and wants, to know what I think she should do. Or I didn't know what, but I felt very compelled that I had to call and find out something. But I didn't know what to say, what to do.
And you did the call.
I did the call.
And that was played in court, but you can go back and listen to it. We've got it on our YouTube channel if you want to hear it. Very, very emotional call. We played some of it today. Mm-hmm. And what's the communication been like since? I mean, you came to her trial. Mm-hmm. She smiled when you walked in. She tried to connect with you. I mean,
she did.
Has that been the only time you've seen her in person? In person,
yeah. And she can't even have visitors right now. And I don't know that I would go see her if I could. I'm not sure if I would, but she's not allowed that anyway. So it would just be video chat, which I haven't done. The communication since then, we went a couple of long months without talking at all. And then when she was in the hospital, She was calling my mom, and then my mom added me in a couple of calls when she was on with Lori, so I talked to her twice on the phone in the hospital. And then after that, it's just been text on the app.
Surface conversation?
Very, very superficial. Don't talk to her about, I've asked her, I mean, I've pressed her and asked her about things before, but most of the conversation is movie quotes, uplifting quotes,
Spiritual stuff.
Church. Well, hers to me is a lot of spiritual stuff,
Right.
but
You don't go there with.
I try not to go there because it's really upsetting, and I don't give more than I'm willing to lose. So if I have an expectation of what I want back, I can't go there with her. And so if I feel generous that day, I might give a little bit more in our conversation. But if I'm feeling very, guarded and reserved and upset with her, which I am a lot of days, then either I don't send anything, and I don't text every day. This is just periodically, but like sometimes I'll just do literal movie quotes of movies that we both had liked and just leave it at that and not even say anything else.
Did you ever think of just cutting her off?
Yeah. I hate what she did, but I don't hate her. That's my sister. We have a history. I've seen her be a good person. And what if she comes out of this delusion one day? I don't think she will. I don't think she'll allow herself to. But if she does, then I would want to know. And so I can't bring myself to I can't live with hate in my heart. I can't do it. So I just do the best that I can with grieving her as a sister while she's still alive. Our relationship's totally different. She's not my real sister, but I still have this history and I love her for that history, and I'm never going to just be like, shut the door.
But you have no desire to talk to Chad?
None. I have talked to Chad.
Yeah, tell us about that if you can, if you want.
I mean, there's not much to say. He called me when Lori was arrested in Hawaii, and the first thing that he said to me was, there's nothing I can tell you about the kids. And he was, he's mumbly. I have a hard time hearing his voice and listening and making out the words, and I just don't have any respect for him, and I don't think that he would ever tell me the truth, so there would be 0 point in ever having a conversation with him. I think he's just void of all real emotion.
Well, there's a lot more I could ask you, but we don't have 4 hours.
We could go on.
What is the biggest thing you want people to know? Well, before we get to that, sorry. Again, there's a lot I want to ask you. What's the biggest misconception out there? Is there anything that you want to clear up?
Oh gosh, there's tons of them. There's been so many things said about our family. I can't even address them all. I just let people think what they want to think, because I know what's real and what's not. But happy to answer those questions, but I can't spend all my time doing that. I know that the last interview, I know a lot of people were upset because they thought my mom and I lied for Lori and said that we talked to JJ on October 1st, but I'll just explain that really quickly. We were in the interview, we were in a total state of shock the entire time, and we're trying to just get through it the best we can. We had no preparation. We didn't know what we were going to say ahead of time. We just went in and just answered the questions, and they asked us when the last time we had spoken with Lori was. And we were like looking at each other like, I don't know, was it October? Was it September? We couldn't really remember. But we knew it was in that time frame, and we had remembered some of our calls. JJ had gotten on the phone with my mom a few times, and I had heard him in the background on a few of my calls, and I was positive it was him in the background of them. This was early September. And so we were just talking about that. And then when we got home, the station called and asked us for the phone records to show like when our calls were. And the most recent, like the last call my mom had with Lori was on October 1st, and it was about an hour long. So, it seemed reasonable that was the time she spoke with JJ, but she didn't really remember talking to him specifically on that day. And she wasn't trying to say, I talked to him on that day.
Right.
It was just, we think it was around this time.
I see. So, and of course, we know sadly that JJ and Tylee were both gone by October 1st.
Yes.
It had been a few weeks. So, wasn't September 8th the last time you talked to Lori before all this?
Well,
or the day that you learned they moved?
It was the day that I learned they moved. So when after Charles had been shot, she had told me that her landlord wanted her out at the end of August, and I'm like, where are you going to go and what are you going to do? And she told me that she was going to move back in with Alex. Her and Tylee and JJ were going to move back in with Alex. They had stayed with him before they rented that house, and so they were going to go back there. And we went over and helped them pack up their house and assumed that's where they were headed. My mom spent time with Tylee packing up her room, and as far as my mom knew and what it seemed Tylee knew, is that was the plan. My mom said, if you don't want to go to Alex's, you can stay with me. And Tylee said she wanted to be with her mom. And so the next day is when they actually moved, and I called to say, can we come help you move? And she said, no, we got it. We already are on the road. And then, so I was texting all that week saying, do you guys want to come over for dinner? I know it's hard to move and, make meals. And she just kept saying, we have stuff going on, we're busy, and little excuses. And so then she called on September 8th. And, sorry. My parents were over, we had everybody over, so we put it on speakerphone, and she said that they were leaving town, that they were moving out of state for a while, that they were safe, but they needed to stay gone for a while. And so that we could call them anytime we wanted, but they aren't going to tell anybody where they are until things kind of calm down. She had said that she had given us a couple of different reasons why they were leaving, but none that we understood completely, but we were just like, okay, whatever we can do to support you during this hard, I was assuming she was going through this hard time after her husband had died, and she seemed that way to me at the time.
Yeah. But clearly that was when they took off for Idaho, and then the communication just became sporadic.
Yeah. Well, it was here and there texts, a couple of phone calls, and then after October, nothing. Nothing until she went to jail.
So what about your takeaway from all of this? What you want people to know?
Well, I have a lot of takeaways. First of all, tomorrow's not promised, so hug your loved ones tight every day. Take the picture you don't want to take just for the memories. Create the memories. But the biggest thing that I really like people to know is how wonderful Tylee and JJ were. They were incredible human beings, and I feel so privileged to have known them, to have been a part of their life, to have seen their goodness. JJ was a force to be reckoned with. When he was the best reader, he could read from a very young age, and so he would love to get on, if you had a phone or an iPad, he would love to get on the app and order himself plushies and suitcases and toys that he liked.
And then mysterious packages would show up at the front door, right?
They would, yeah. And a lot of times he got to keep what he ordered because he was, just too cute to tell him no. So he got to keep a lot of the things he ordered for himself. And Tylee was just such a good person. She had a lot of integrity. She was kind and generous, very loyal. She would do anything for her friends and family. She really loved with her whole heart. She had a little bit of a sass and wit, and she wasn't afraid to show it and speak her mind, but she was also very kind-hearted. She never did anything out of meanness, but just out of sometimes jokes and things. She would give a little to, especially my kids. They would kind of go back and forth sometimes.
So yeah, I'm sure that the death penalty is kind of sinking in.
Yeah.
With Chad, and is it a little bit of closure, going forward?
It is. I didn't expect that I needed it, but after hearing it, I realized that Tylee and JJ did not deserve the deaths that they got. Their deaths were brutal and unfair. It is unacceptable that they were treated that way. And no matter what happens to Chad, it will never be as bad as what he did to them.
Yeah. Thank you, Summer.
Yeah.